My friends, there are battles in life that are not fought with fists or fire. They are waged in silence in the realm of the mind, the heart, and the soul. The greatest victories are not those that bring down buildings or armies, but those that dismantle hatred without ever raising a hand. Today, I do not speak to you of vengeance. I speak to you of power, the quiet kind, the kind that does not roar, but resonates, the kind that does not destroy, but disarms. We all face opposition. We all face betrayal. And yes, we all encounter those who would rather see us fall than rise. But there are ways silent, steady, and devastating to overcome such enemies without ever becoming like them. Let me speak now of 4 such ways. Not to teach destruction, but to teach transcendence, for the truest triumph over your enemies is to remain undefeated in spirit. When you begin to rise above those who seek to pull you down, you disarm them in the most profound way possible. Outgrowing your enemies is not about arrogance or pride. It is about choosing a higher road where their hostility no longer finds a place to land. It is the refusal to remain in the space where conflict thrives. When you elevate yourself, intellectually, emotionally, and morally, you place yourself beyond their reach. They may try to provoke you, to engage you in petty battles, but you will find that as you grow, those provocations begin to lose their power. The higher you climb in your journey of purpose and self-mastery, the more irrelevant their efforts become. Your enemies often draw strength from your reaction, from your presence in the same arena where grudges are held and insults exchanged. But growth changes the battlefield. It shifts the rules. When you focus on becoming better rather than bitter, on building rather than breaking, you leave behind those whose only power lies in opposition. Growth renders their weapons useless. They may throw stones, but you are building a foundation. They may speak ill, but you are speaking truth through action. You are no longer defined by their opinion, nor are you confined by their limitations. Outgrowing someone means you no longer need to prove them wrong. Instead, you live in a way that makes their opinions irrelevant. It is a form of silent resistance, subtle but undeniable. You stop attending the arguments they host in your absence. You don't explain, you evolve. You don't retaliate, you rise. And in doing so, you create a gap so wide that they cannot reach you with their judgment, their envy, or their schemes. To grow beyond your enemies is not only to defeat them quietly, it is to become someone they cannot touch, not because you are hiding, but because you are soaring. You find peace not by changing them, but by changing your altitude. And up there, above resentment and retaliation, you find your power. There is a rare and quiet power in refusing to react. Silence, when used with intention, becomes more than just the absence of speech. It becomes a message in itself. Your enemies often thrive on provoking you, on dragging you into a space of chaos where your anger or frustration gives them control. But when you choose not to react, you starve them of the attention and validation they crave. You deny them the satisfaction of seeing you disturbed or disrupted. In that silence, you take back control, not by attacking, but by refusing to be moved. Not every insult deserves a reply, and not every challenge is worth your energy. When you respond to every strike, you allow your enemies to dictate the rhythm of your life. But when you withhold your reaction, you assert your dominance in the most composed and disciplined manner. Your silence begins to echo louder than their noise. It confuses them, frustrates them, and eventually exposes their weakness, because those who live to provoke cannot survive without a response. They are sustained by your emotion, and when that source is cut off, they are left speaking to shadows. Choosing silence is not about being passive. It is a calculated act of power. It takes strength to stay calm when you are being attacked, to remain still when the world demands a storm. But this form of stillness is not surrender. It is strategy. It gives you time to observe, to understand, and to plan. While your enemies waste energy trying to get a rise out of you, you conserve yours for things that truly matter. You become unshakable, and that unshakable presence is more intimidating than any outburst could ever be. Silence also reflects emotional maturity. It shows that you are not a slave to your impulses. You are not reactionary, you are intentional. This is especially powerful in moments of conflict, where a single careless word could be used against you. When you choose silence, you offer no ammunition. You become unpredictable, unreadable, and untouchable, and in that state, your enemies begin to lose their power over you. They can no longer control the outcome because you have stopped playing the game. Eventually, silence forces a mirror onto your enemies. With no reaction to fuel their fire, they are left facing themselves, and often, that reflection is something they are not prepared for. Your lack of response highlights their insecurity, their desperation, and their inability to control you. They begin to realize that they are fighting with someone who no longer considers them a threat, someone who has learned that the most powerful response is sometimes no response at all. Success is the quietest and most devastating answer to those who doubt, mock, or oppose you. When you rise through achievement, through consistent effort and visible results, you dismantle your enemies not with confrontation, but with proof. There is no need to speak ill of those who stand against you when your actions can speak louder than any argument. Every milestone you reach, every goal you surpass, every moment you thrive becomes a reminder to your enemies that they could not stop you. Your progress becomes a declaration, clear, undeniable, and deeply unsettling to those who hoped you would fail. There are few things more painful to an enemy than watching the very person they tried to undermine continue to grow, thrive, and lead. Your success exposes the weakness of their tactics. It shows that their words were powerless, their obstacles ineffective, and their intentions irrelevant. The more you succeed, the smaller their influence becomes. They may still speak, still scheme, still attempt to pull you down, but each step you take forward leaves them further behind. You don't need to retaliate, because your journey itself becomes the most eloquent form of resistance. Success is also a signal of discipline and focus, qualities that many enemies lack. When you refuse to be distracted by pettiness and choose instead to stay locked in on your vision, you outlast and outwork those who hoped to derail you. Your determination makes their negativity obsolete. While they waste their time watching you, talking about you, or resenting you, you are too busy building, learning, and evolving. The gap between you and them widens not through hatred, but through effort. You become unreachable not because you pushed them down, but because you kept rising. In this way, success becomes your shield and your sword. It protects you by lifting you out of reach, and it strikes by proving every insult and limitation wrong. It humbles your enemies without you ever needing to speak a word. Even if they never admit it, your victories unsettle them. They are forced to confront the reality that their negativity did not define your path. And in that realization, they are defeated, not by force, but by the overwhelming presence of your progress. It's important to note that true success is not only measured by wealth or recognition, but by peace, purpose, and inner strength. When you build a life that aligns with your values, when you find joy in your journey and clarity in your direction, you win in ways your enemies cannot understand. You become proof that dignity, perseverance, and focus are more powerful than sabotage or hate. Your calm becomes your crown, your work speaks for you, and every step you take forward, no matter how quiet, resounds like thunder in the hearts of those who once tried to hold you back. Controlling the narrative means refusing to let your enemies define who you are. It is the decision to take ownership of your identity, your truth, and your voice. When others speak against you, spread rumors, or twist facts, they are attempting to rewrite your story for their own benefit. But the power lies not in their words. It lies in your ability to rise above them and present your truth with clarity and conviction. You become your own author. You decide what your legacy will be, not through reaction, but through deliberate, conscious living. Enemies will often try to paint you in a negative light because they fear what you represent. Your presence, your progress, and your potential threaten them. So they try to distort the image others see of you, hoping to weaken your influence or credibility. But when you take back control of your narrative, through your actions, your principles, and your purpose, you disarm their tactics. People begin to see who you truly are, not who your enemies claim you to be. And over time, that truth gains strength, consistency, and authenticity. Owning your story also means embracing your past, your failures, your flaws, your lessons. When you no longer hide from the parts of your journey that others might use against you, you become untouchable. You take away the element of surprise. You leave no room for manipulation. Your honesty becomes a shield, and your growth becomes a weapon. When others try to bring up your past to shame you, they find themselves facing someone who has already faced it, accepted it, and turned it into strength. The more you speak your truth, live your values, and stay consistent in your purpose, the less power your enemies have to sway others against you. People may hear rumors, but when your character remains unshaken and your actions reflect integrity, the lies begin to fall apart. Perception is shaped by repetition, but it is ultimately solidified by authenticity, and your ability to remain authentic in a world that thrives on noise and distortion makes you a force that cannot be easily dismantled. Even in silence, you can control the narrative. You can let your work, your kindness, and your presence tell the story. You don't always need to defend yourself. Sometimes, letting your life speak is the loudest message you can send. Every time you stay focused, act with grace, or pursue your goals despite the noise around you, you are writing a version of the story that your enemies cannot erase. They may talk, but you will live. They may plot, but you will build. And in the end, the story that lasts will not be theirs. It will be the one you chose to tell. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as weakness, but in truth, it is one of the most formidable tools you can use against your enemies. When you forgive, not out of obligation, but from a place of strength and self-possession, you deny your enemies the power to live rent, free in your mind and heart. You refuse to let their actions continue to control your emotions, your energy, or your peace. Forgiveness, in this sense, is not about excusing what was done to you. It is about choosing to rise above it. It is a quiet and deliberate way to reclaim your freedom. Your enemies often hope that you will remain stuck in the bitterness they caused. They count on the fact that their harm will echo in your life, shaping your decisions and dimming your spirit. But when you forgive, you break that cycle. You no longer carry the weight they placed on your shoulders. You refuse to let their wrongs define your journey. Instead, you define it yourself with clarity and grace. That decision alone is deeply unsettling to those who sought to hurt you, because it shows that even their most calculated attacks could not imprison your soul. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not require that you welcome harmful people back into your life. It simply means you no longer give them the satisfaction of knowing they have power over you. You move on not because they deserve it, but because you do, because your peace is too precious to sacrifice for the sake of resentment. When you forgive, you choose to heal on your own terms. That healing becomes a form of silent triumph, one that cannot be taken or faked. Strategic forgiveness also disorients your enemies. They expect anger, they expect retaliation, but when you respond with calm, with composure, and with detachment, it unsettles them. It reveals how little control they actually have. Your grace exposes their pettiness, your peace highlights their chaos, and over time they begin to see that you have something they cannot touch, a spirit that refuses to be reduced by hatred or hurt. In forgiving, you also model strength for others. You show that it is possible to endure betrayal or injustice and still choose dignity. You show that letting go is not defeat, but maturity, and in doing so, you shift the balance of power. Your enemies may still speak, but they no longer matter. They may still try to wound, but you are no longer vulnerable in the same way. Forgiveness creates distance, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. And from that distance, you gain perspective, clarity, and strength. Ultimately, forgiveness is a decision to live freely. It is a silent but powerful way to rise above every scheme and every wound. Your enemies do not need your hatred to be defeated. They are already defeated the moment you decide they no longer deserve a place in your heart or your future. You forgive not to make peace with them, but to make peace with yourself, and that peace becomes your victory.